Rogue. What up, everybody? Welcome to Coffee Hour. My name is Paul Abernathy, your host, as always, here in the morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, bringing you electrical talk, chat, conversation, code, answering questions, whatever we need to do to get your week started, get your day started right here at Coffee Hour, the only electrically specific show. Again, we also live vicariously through all of you who have joined us. And make sure you do me a favor over in the chat. Let you know who you are, where you're from, what you got going on. Got any questions? Feel free to post them there. Today, we are going to be talking about multi-wire branch circuits and answering any questions you may have on multi-wire branch circuits. We're going to look at the National Electrical Code, kind of work our way through it, talking about multi-wire branch circuits. Again, there's a lot of misconceptions about them. Some people don't like them. And all those kind of things. So we'll be talking about all that kind of good stuff today on the show. But as always, again, we wouldn't be here every day if it wasn't for folks like you that listen and watch the show. We appreciate you. If you've ever purchased any of our programs, any of our courses, we appreciate you. It's what keeps us going. And also understanding that it's pretty tough out there to get the exposure today on search engines and things like that. So I always say to folks, do me a favor, share us with everybody you know. Even if you're a hater out there, there's people that need to learn the National Electrical Code. And we like to think we teach it in a unique way to help you learn the NEC, kind of bring it to life a little bit and make it enjoyable. Again, don't know it all. Don't claim to know it all. I'm learning something new every day. And so, yeah. Just we want you to be a part of the family, and we appreciate you being here. There's many platforms for you to be able to watch on, so we appreciate that. All right, so let's go over and say hello to some of our family here. What's up, Paul, the sign man in Texas? There you go, down in Houston, Texas. What's up, Cray Cray? Welcome from Nashville in the house. Music City's in the house. What's up, Adam? Adam is our unofficial spokesperson out on the social media, okay, at least out on the Facebooks and things. I appreciate it. Should I say official? Can I say official, Adam? What's up? Here we go. Marlon, thank you, sir. Glad to have you here. Welcoming all you code nerds here. Again, safe zone. You can ask questions. I'll do my best to answer them the best I can. If not, we will write it down and answer it on another episode if I don't know the answer right off the top of my head. And I'm not a code historian, by the way, so people ask me all the time, why did we do this back in 1930, whatever? And I have no idea. I don't go back and read those things, to be honest with you. So, but we can, and we can do it in a future episode. Also, it's a good point for me to make here is that if you have any questions that are really detailed, or you have a really detailed, please remember that we have paulabernathy.com. It's a free service. It doesn't cost you anything. It's zero. Now you can get it from your mobile app, which is available on our website. You should all have our mobile app because you have all these other features like calculators and blogs, and you can get right to this show directly with one click on the app. So that's cool too. But one of the things about it is that you can get, when you get access to everything directly, quickly, then it makes life so much easier because we have so many different things that we can talk about and share on the show. That type of thing. Let's see, where are we at here? I'm sorry. What's up, Provident? Glad to have you here, as always. Let's see here. AJ's in the house. What's up, AJ? Glad to have you here. Rob is in the house. Glad to have you here. Good morning. Watching on vacation. That's what I'm talking about. Relaxing on vacation and still watching Coffee Hour. That's what I'm talking about. Appreciate you, Rob. All right, folks, we'll get into it early. Just let us know who you are, where you're from. Let us know vicariously. I live through you, so I appreciate everything. We get constant emails each week about people that is achieving success in the course and in the program. But I will tell you that I get a fair amount of emails from people that are struggling. So please don't think that I don't understand that the life is a struggle. There's a young man who reached out to me and is really struggling hard. Truck broke down, got a new baby, got in a little trouble with the law. But, I can tell is a good person. just as having, it's just kind of that spiral downhill. Everything seems to be going wrong. And even in their conversation, they was talking about if his wife left him, they're very distant, and that he would end his pain. And I'm like, that is not the way to be thinking. So if anybody out there is in that position where you're feeling down and out, nobody around you, maybe you don't have any family, you don't have a support structure, man, don't feel like you can't reach out to somebody. Whether it's even just calling a random stranger, or calling a helpline or something. Life is too precious. The gentleman is in his 20s. You have so much life ahead of you. Who would have thought in my career, who would ever thought that I would have started my journey in Charlottesville, Virginia? And I never would have thought that I would ended up in Richmond, Virginia. Lord knows I wouldn't ended up that I would end up in Alexandria, Virginia. And I would have never thought that I would have ended up in Texas, and then ultimately 11 years later, I end up back in Virginia. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, you think you know, right? Things look bad right now to a lot of people. Maybe you're trying to get your business going and it's just been tough and struggling and it looks bad, but there is a bright side. You just keep pushing. Don't give up. Never give up. Never give up. We're only on this rock a short amount of time. It's not worth giving up. Things are going to get probably worse for many people before they get better. But you got to keep plugging forward and don't blame anybody else but yourself. Own it and make it better. That's all advice I can give to the gentleman, the young man. I said, you know what? People can give you money. That doesn't solve a problem. There's a problem that needs to be solved. Okay. So again, that's a shout out to all you out there that are struggling with that type of thing. Kind of remember that. Red Dog, welcome. Buenos dias, my friend. Good to have you here.
Big Dog.
David, I did get your message about certificates and all that time. Since we haven't done a renewal, we really hadn't reinitiated certificates. But again, I understand that we have done a couple for people who still have them on their wall and they want to update it, a non-expired certificate. I'll get you taken care of. Let's see here. Who else do we got here? Manny, my mic is actually in the way, so let's move it around here. Manny's in the house. There you go, Manny, wearing the code NERD. Green. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Who else we got? We got Larry throwing up the code #win. Thanks. Thank you. David's in the house. #win in it. Remember, folks, get in on a spin here. Third quarter has started. We've added a couple new things to the wheel. I guess it'd be the right time to show that. So what else have we added to the wheel? You see that we have added coasters. Now, you might think, wow, that's a novel idea. Paul's doing coasters. Well, we wanted to do some coasters with our designs on them. So again, we're very proud of electricians. And I am always promoting electricians. I think it's the most amazing trade in the world. For me, I just came up with them simply because my wife did not want me to tear up the new furniture that we have in the new house. So there's one for the master. There was one for the journeyman. These are etched in. And of course, we have electrician rules with just an electrician on there. These have been added to the wheel, so you have a chance to win these. And you can choose from whatever one you want. It doesn't matter. And we have others coming out. And they've been doing pretty good. People buy these. These are available over on our website. And there's the one with the ohms wheel. You'll notice that we choose to use V for voltage rather than E, okay, on this design. All right. Some people say, oh, no, you got to use E. No, you don't. Use whatever you want. Okay. Don't ever let people box you into saying you have to do something. You do whatever you want to do. Okay. Okay. So that type of thing. I really don't do custom stuff, Manny, because it's just one-off, that type of thing. So I'm really not into the custom stuff for those type of things. Let's see here. What's up, Tom? Welcome. Eric, been a while, my friend. Good to see you. It has indeed been a while. From California. Glad to have you out here. Let's see. What's up, Adrian? Glad to have you here. Another one down in Houston, Texas. Also, it would be remiss for me if I did not shout out to, we moved back from Texas, Kerrville, in the flooding out there, in the loss of those poor children and poor family members and everybody that was damaged. I tell you what, if you really want to have a heavy heart, just go to social media and see what people say. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what side of the political fence you're on. People say the most evilest things on social media. I mean, it's just heartbreaking what people say. It's like they have no soul. I mean, here you've got families that lost their children or lost their loved ones. Some whole families were washed away, and people say, well, they should have known. You don't know at 4 a.m. in the morning when a flash flood comes. I mean, people build beside the river all the time because they love being on the river. You just don't know. Here in Virginia, we got the James River, which floods. People live on it. It just is what it is. And so to come up with all that hate that people have in their heart, it's just, it's incredible to me. So I had to literally stop watching, get off of the social media because of all the hate stuff that just, it's just incredible. Do we have a coffee hour coaster? We do not have a coffee hour coaster because I did just not think people would want to buy a coffee hour coaster. But but we certainly can make that happen, that type of thing. Let's see. All right, let's go on and get into today's topic. Again, folks, welcome to the stream. If you've never been here before, my name's Paul Abernathy. I've been working with the National Electrical Code since the mid-'80s. And I just got told the other day that I'm an old man. I got called a grandpa the other day because I'm 56 years old. I may look older than that, but I'm only 56. I like to think I feel 56 young. Still have quite a bit of energy left in me, hopefully. I did post some pictures on social media of me working on the boat this weekend. And it's just a bass boat. Don't be all crazy. People said, oh, Mr. showing his money. Dude, it's a bass boat. It's a bass tracker boat too. It's a damn aluminum bass tracker boat. I bought that thing brand new back in 2014. Same boat, still have it. It only has 56 or 52 or whatever hours on the engine, but I still had to take it into the shop, and it cost me $2,600 because I guessed what happens when a boat sits for over a year, the fuel pumps go bad on it or whatever. At least that's what they told me. And that was $1,500 for a new fuel pump installed. I was like, really? Dude, I'm in the wrong business. But had the plugs done and had everything done, so it's ready to go, turnkey, hopefully, and take it out on the lake and do some fishing, get my wife out on the lake while her memory is slowly going. She loves to bass fish. So that's what we're going to do. And I was an hour and a half away from a lake. Now I'm only 15 minutes from a lake. So excited about that. Let's see here. Giving my apprentice a 2023 illustrated guide to the NEC. He is struggling with school and hoping it helps him. There you go. Hopefully it helps him out and we'll get him back on track. Definitely a good publication, that's for sure. All right, let's get into multi-wire branch circuits today. It's part of our lesson. If you have any questions I should shout out. Also shout out to all the folks that are behind the scenes over on TikTok. If you have not heard, we are, at least until they ban me, we are back on TikTok for behind the scenes. I won't be answering any questions on TikTok because I'm focused on the show. But if you're over on TikTok and you want to see behind the scenes, I don't know what you'd want to see, the side of my face, my mixing board, whatever, but we appreciate you anyway. What's up, Petey? Glad to have you here. What is this? We're all in the wrong business when we're on the other side of the fence. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I do recognize out there, like I said, and my son is the same way. He's struggling, and he made poor choices, and he wants daddy to fix his choices. Daddy can't fix his choices. He made his own choices in life, and he's struggling with it as well. Daddy helps where he can. Financially, I probably shouldn't, because even when somebody threatens to kill you, you probably still should stop supporting them. But I'm a dad. I can't help it. I still try to support him. But at the end of the day, he's struggling like everybody else. So, hopefully he gets his life sorted out, that type of thing. All right, let's get into today's lesson. All right. Again, good morning, Jay. Glad to have you here. All right, we're going to talk multi-wire branch circuits today. What is and any questions you have, you can see them right on the screen. You can post them. I'm more than happy to try to answer them for you. Multi-wire branch circuit. Okay, easiest way that I can explain this to most people is just like you have a piece of non-metallic sheath cable. Many of you may call Romex. It's a slang name. That's a trade name for Southwire, but we all manufacturers Ciro, Encore Wire, which is Prismium now. All of us make what's called a multi-wire branch circuit cable. It's got a black, a red, a white, and an equipment ground in it. So you have the black and red, and you have the white. Now, this can be either used for a 240 volt circuit where you're using the black and the red. So it's single phase, so line 1 to line 2, or leg A to leg B, or whatever you want. So that could be used as a 240 volt circuit. And since it has a neutral, if it's a 240 volt load that has a neutral load, then it can be used as well to handle any part of that line to neutral, line 1 or line 2 to neutral that may run some other component that's in some piece of equipment that may be a 240 volt equipment that does have neutral loads. Like when we talk about dryers and ranges, things like that, they have a neutral contribution. Usually it's the electronics or whatnot in it. Okay, so that's not used as a multi-wire branch circuit. That's used just as a 240 volt circuit. All right, but you have occasion where you might want to get two separate circuits, okay, out of one cable assembly where you're actually sharing the neutral, right? And you've all heard, and we'll look at some illustrations real quick in a minute, but I'm kind of giving you what's called the, my boss and all of them used to say, Paul, give me the synopsis up front to make life a little easier to understand the topic. So that's what I'm doing. So in a multi-wire branch circuit, typically, if you have a black and a red, let's just say it's a 14-3 non-metallic sheath cable, you have the black and the red, and you have a shared neutral. So if you install it correctly, and we're going to look at how you install it today, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, and you all should be. Okay? As an electrician, you should be old hat for you, but we never know who's watching, so we want to make sure we educate. So with a black and a red, the white, if installed properly, will carry the imbalance between the two legs, right? So for example, if I'm pulling 10 amps on the red and I'm pulling 5 amps on the black, then what's going to happen is, since I'm pulling 10 and 5, the 5 and 5 will cancel out, and the imbalance is the remaining 5. Where does that go? Well, it's going to be on the neutral. Okay, so it's carrying the imbalance. Now, one thing to remember about a multi-wire branch circuit is that if I'm carrying 10 amps on leg A, or the red, and 10 amps on leg B, the black, that if I'm carrying 10 amps on this one and 0 on this one, then the neutral is going to see what? 10 amps. Right? Because that's going to be the maximum imbalance in the situation. So just remember, a multi-wire branch circuit, there is no risk. What's up, David A? Thanks for joining us. Frank, I see you in the house, Frank. There isn't any risk. People are very concerned about multi-wire branch circuits for some reason. Now, let's just talk residential. A multi-wire branch circuit is literally no way that you can overload it if you install it properly. Okay? If it's a 20 amp multi-wire branch circuit, you have 20 amps on A, 20 amps on B, or 20 amps on black, 20 amps on red, then the neutral is going to see 0. It's just the way it works. Cancellation effect takes place. If you have 20 amps on A, the red, let's say, and 0 on B, then you're going to get 20 amps on the neutral. Okay? That's the maximum imbalance. This one's carrying nothing, so no cancellation. This one's carrying 20, so coming in, what comes in's got to go back. Okay, closed loop system. So there is literally no way that you're going to overload that neutral in that scenario if you install the circuit breakers properly. And that means that you install them together on 2 single poles with an identified handle tie. And we'll look at the code here in a second. That if you put it so that those breakers are on top of each other, stacked. Remember the other day we talked about panel boards and how it alternates? Okay, so you got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, how it alternates down the bus. Well, one of the things is to remember is that in a multi-wire branch circuit, you want to make sure that if you're going to use, and the code permits you to use single pole breakers, but they have to be together, one on top of the other, not side by side, left to right, but stacked on top of each other in a way, that way that each one is on a different leg. And so that's how the cancellation effect takes place. Okay. Now you're still going to get a full circuit. You're still going to, if it's a 20 amp breakers, two single poles on top of each other with an identified handle tie that connects them together, you're still going to get 20 amps out of the red. You're still going to get 20 amps out of the black. It's two separate circuits. It just is sharing a neutral. So one of the misconceptions that people have is that it's a single circuit. No, that's why they call it a multi-wire branch circuit. It's two separate, full separate circuits. Now, back in the day, we used to have, I've told you this story before, we had small appliance branch circuits that were running to these little kitchens in these dwelling units for the college, University of Virginia. And the kitchen countertop area was very small, but it was more than 12 inches, so it required a receptacle. But it also was a countertop in the kitchen area, so it required a minimum of two small appliance branch circuits. Well, easiest way to solve that was we ran a 12-3 up there. We took a receptacle, we broke the tab on one side, the hot side, okay? And we had a multi-wire branch circuit. And so the red the top, the black the bottom, broke the tab for the power, left the tab for the neutral, and it was a multi-wire branch circuit. Two separate circuits, we met the code. That was our two small appliance branch circuits, but we did it with one cable. And we were able to get them on the same area by putting one receptacle in there, that type of thing. Now, occasionally we put a 4-inch square and we put two separate duplexes, and then we'd still run the same 12-3, but the left receptacle would be the one circuit and the right would be the other. If we needed to get, if they wanted extra receptacles there, that was up to the college, to be honest with you. Anyway, so multi-wire branch circuits, it is right. Now, what happens if I don't install the circuit breakers correctly? What if I put two single pole breakers, but they're like, just go to the very top of your panel, that's marked, numbered as 1, 2, and then it's 3, 4, right? And then 5, 6, all the way down, alternates down, right? So the 1 and 2 is the very top, okay? But what if I had a multi-wire branch circuit and I put a single pole breaker in slot 1 and one in slot 2? Now they're on the same leg in the panel. They're not alternating. First of all, that'd be a violation, and we're going to look at all that. But again, as I give you a summary, but by doing that, what happens is it becomes cumulative. So that means if I'm pulling 10 amps on slot 1 and I'm pulling 10 amps on slot 2, then I'm going to be pulling 20 amperes, okay? So what does that mean that neutral is going to see if it's a multi-wire branch circuit? That neutral is going to see both of those. So you're going to be pulling 20 amps on there. So how could this be a problem? Well, if it's a 20 amp breaker and it's only pulling 10 and 10, it's not going to trip the breaker, okay? Still got 10 amps available on each one of these breakers. So potentially you could have 20 and 20, and that means that neutral could be carrying 40 amperes. Well, it's sized the same as the branch circuit conductors in a standard cable assembly. So it's still only a 20 amp. It's still only a 12. So that creates a problem. And that's when you start to see things like the neutrals that are white start to brown out, change colors. And this can also happen in commercial applications where people don't understand that concept of a multi-wire branch circuit. And so because of that, many people don't want to use it. And I tell people, no, it does have the possibility to screw things up if you don't know what you're doing. But you're trained professionals. This is why you dabble in the code. This is why you learn these things. This is why you hopefully get training, because you know the difference between the right way to do a multi-wire branch circuit and the wrong way to do a multi-wire branch circuit. And so again, the NEC cannot hold your hand. Nothing's going to take the place of knowledge and skill and training. Hopefully you understand that that's how multi-wire branch, but they're perfectly safe. I would have no problem using them every day of the week because I know how they work, that type of thing. Now, the principles of loading on the circuit, the same type of scenario, okay? But we're not talking about AFCIs. You can, multi-wire branch circuits, you can find circuit breakers that are designed, whether it's AFCIs and things like that. You can find circuit breakers that allow you to do the multi-wire branch circuit. And there's still circuits in the dwelling. There's still circuits out in commercial that don't require AFCIs to be on them and things like that. So there's certain applications, but they do make 2-pole AFCIs. Most certainly, it's still available. That type of thing. Okay, still make those type of things available. Also, a multi-wire branch circuit works fine in a lot of cases where you're actually just doing downstream protection. So you might put a receptacle type AFCI at the first receptacle, and then everything downstream is still going to be protected, that type of thing. So you still have some allowances for those applications, right? So we still have some opportunity, but really we just want to we can't cover everything, right? I mean, it's a lot of times the pressure feels like we have to cover everything about every topic. We really don't. Today we're just going to be talking multi-wire branch circuits. All right. So let's see here. Let's go look at some things here. So number A, we have our call out first, which is A, and we're talking multi-wire branch circuits. So a voltmeter will not register a voltage potential difference between when connected to the same ungrounded hot conductor. Therefore, a multi-wire circuit must consist of conductors connected to different phases, right? Now, I don't like this wording here because, again, this implies that this is only for like 3-phase setups because if you have a single phase, then a single phase is not multi-phases or different phases. It's just one phase, right? So single phase is one phase. So that's why we say line 1, line 2, leg A, leg B, because it is just one of the phases. Now, it might be derived from actually a 3-phase application that derives a single phase, but for when we're thinking about multi-wire branch circuits down at a level that we're working with in the premise, then really it's when you're not dealing with when you're dealing with a dwelling, it's just single phase, so it's leg to leg. But it may be in a 3-phase where you're dealing with phase to phase because you have a phase A, phase B, phase C, that type of thing. Okay, so again, probably not. I would, if I had to alter that language, it would be a little bit to not just say different phases. Okay, but anyway, I think in our illustration it'll probably be phases because it makes it simpler. So let's look at A real quick. So here's A. Right now, here's that setup. Remember I told you this is 2 breakers. I don't know if I can zoom in on that for you. Here's those 2 breakers that are side by side. And you notice that there's no potential between them because they're at the same. They're at the 120. Okay. So in that scenario, there's no way that can be anything remotely called a multi-wire branch circuit. Okay. You have to have differences of potential. These are on the same leg, so there is 0 potential between them. Okay, so it is not a multi-wire branch circuit. And remember what I said, it will be cumulative onto the neutral. Most certainly will be. If you have a shared neutral, that is. Okay. All right, let's go back. Okay, so that was just all that was illustrating. So shouldn't get anything on that. Now B, multi-wire branch circuit consists of 2 or more ungrounded hot conductors, okay, the black and the red, okay, that have a voltage between them. And that's Article 100. Remember in the Fast Tracks program, folks, anytime we see a chevron, we typically go where? We'll go to the National Electrical Code and look up something in the National Electrical Code. Of course, we're obviously going to do that. Here's the definition of a multi-wire branch circuit. Also, you'll notice here, grayed out to the side of it, whereas it's branch circuit, multi-wire. A cycle ago, they realized that, or in the 2023, that there was an effort that was being made because more and more people are using electronic like link and all that kind of stuff in the field. And it makes life easier for the search feature, right? So if you're searching, nobody's going to search branch circuit, multi-wire. So by putting this in here like this is the common way that we would say it. It's now going to be easier or come up better in your search results. So if anybody wondered why that was done that way, this is done all throughout the code. But again, it is a branch circuit, and of the type, this is a multi-wire. We have general purpose. We have individual branch circuit. We have small appliance branch circuits. And of course, we have multi-wire branch circuits. Now, what is a multi-wire branch circuit as defined? It says it's a branch circuit that consists of two, so it's got to have at least two or more ungrounded conductors, basically your hot conductors, okay, that have a voltage between them. That means they're on different phases or different legs, okay? It says, and a neutral conductor that has an equal voltage between it and the other ungrounded conductors of the circuit, and that is connected to the neutral conductor of the system, okay? So for us, right, it is leg to leg. There's a difference of potential because, again, remember the sinusoidal waveform, okay? When one leg is at the peak, the other one's at the opposite, okay? So at the end of the day, there is a potential between them. If we were measuring the same leg, you're not going to get anything because they're measuring at the same point on the sinusoidal waveform. So you're not going to get anything, okay? So we have to measure potentials. And incidentally, that's how people get shocked, is because of a difference of potential. Now, in a multi-wire branch circuit, again, two or more. So I could have a multi-wire branch circuit with three ungrounded conductors and a shared neutral. Happens. You would use a 3-pole with identified handle tie or a 3-pole breaker, things like that. But the key takeaway here is to have a true multi-wire branch circuit. Just make sure they're on opposite legs, okay? That type of thing. What's up, Angel? Good morning. Got multi-angels in here. Good morning to both of you. Irvin, good morning. Poppy, I see you in here. Good morning. All right, let's go back here. All right, let's see here. All right, so that was that one now. Now, it says all conductors of a multi-wire branch circuit must originate from the same panel board or similar distribution equipment. So that is 210.4a that talks about that. So now we're talking about 210. So we're talking about branch circuits, and there's some things that we'll cover in 210 about the various things about branch circuits. So let me go on and get that kind of queued up right here for us so that we got it. All right. Okay, so the first code reference, what's up, Skyattle? Okay, still not sure if I'm getting that right. So all conductors, so let's look at the illustration, and it has to do with call out item D real quick. So here's D. All right, so this is a 120 240 volt panel. Okay, so from leg to leg, okay, 240 volts. From leg to the neutral is 120. From this leg to the neutral is 120. Okay, all that type of good stuff here. All right, here's your main bus. This is a service. There's your main disconnect right here. And there's your neutral bus. And there's your main bonding jumper installed in it. So everything looks good here. Here is an example out here on the right of, what's up, Brandon? Glad to have you here. So here's an example of our multi-wire branch circuit right here. So this happens to actually be, let's just say this is a EMT going out, I guess. Is here you have a black, a red, and a white. And obviously when we talk about two or more ungrounded conductors, and then it talks about any of those to neutral being the same, okay, no matter what the leg is. In this case, since it's 120 240 volt, it's single phase, so it's just leg A to leg B or line 1 to line 2. It's not phase to phase because that would be a 3-phase panel. All right, so here, or 2-phase panel, by the way. All right, so here is black to white, 120, red to white, 120, okay? All right, so there you go. So that is truly is a neutral. Over here, multi-wire branch circuit, but remember what we said here. This measurement would be leg to leg, and that would be 240. So this is 120, this is 120, okay? So it's 240 volts between them, okay? No brainer. And we will talk about some of these other rules real quick as we get into them, but I just want to make sure we're establishing what a multi-wire branch circuit is. And the one thing you will notice here is it's either a 2-pole breaker, because remember, it's alternating. So this one and this one is the same leg. This is a different leg. This is the next leg. Alternates all the way down, okay? So this right here is one. So this is either identified handle tie, means it's 2 single poles side by side with a clip that goes over it that makes them operate simultaneously, or it's a 2-pole breaker, okay, which will already have a common trip tie, okay? So either way, you have multiple options to make this happen, but this is the only way a true multi-wire branch circuit functions, okay? Truly the only way it functions. Also, in order to achieve this, a lot of people ask, can I do this out of separate panels? Absolutely not. To do a multi-wire branch circuit, they have to originate in the same panel. So in this case right here, all of these multi-wire branch circuits originate in the same panel and then go out to whatever various junction boxes, and they may split off from there, whatever. But they originate from right here, okay? Now, what I'll talk about is just some little things to remember. If I happen to have a raceway coming in, by the way, and I have multiple circuits in here, multiple ungrounded conductors, and have multiple neutrals coming in, then you have to make sure that you identify which set of ungrounded conductors that this neutral goes with, okay? And this can be done with a simple tie wire right there. And as you can see here in this illustration right here, now this one is pretty obvious what it is, but you see a tie wire right here, okay? So identification, we'll look at those little things, but that's a tie wire. So the key here, right, is to make sure that if you have multiple multi-wire branch circuits coming in, let's say in a raceway, that it is very identified which neutral goes with which set of ungrounded conductors, okay? Keeping it set, all right? That type of thing. Hey, Trenton, I see you in here, Trenton, and I haven't seen you in here in a while. You won something during the last drawing, but we have yet to find your email address. So Trenton, you won an ultimate coin. Make sure you email us your address and just send it to us at any of our websites. Go to paulabernathy.com if you want. You won an ultimate coin, but we have not been able to find your mailing address anywhere. You won an ultimate coin, so it just made me think. I saw your name and I just thought about it. So you won one of these coins. Make sure you send us that info at info@electricalcodeacademy.com or support@fasttracksystem.com, whatever you want. Make sure you get it to us so that we can get that out to you in the mail. I just saw your name and I said, hey, I remembered you. All right, so where were we? Okay, so that's that. Okay, now E, let's look at E. So what is E? E's right here. So E says there must be only one grounded neutral, and it must be equal voltage between it and each ungrounded conductor of a circuit. And again, you see that illustrated right here. This is a multi-wire branch circuit. I'm going to get one 120 volt circuit out of it, and I'm going to get another 120 volt circuit out of it. Two circuits, one cable, okay? But it could be a raceway, and you run the conductors individually in there. That'll work as well, that type of scenario, okay? Just want to make sure we cover all that. All right, so that's that part of it. So now let's go to the NEC and look at it. So the first one that we're going to look at is 210.4, multi-wire branch circuits. So this is under 210. So y'all know this is branch circuit, right? So that's what we're talking about. It says, in general, it says branch circuits recognized by this article shall be permitted as a multi-wire circuit. A multi-wire circuit shall be permitted to be considered as multiple circuits. Okay, so that's the first thing that we will address. People say, no, it's one cable, it's only one circuit. That is not true. It's two circuits in there. It could be three circuits in there, okay? If you have a three-phase system with an ABC, okay, let's say it's a Y-connected system, 12208Y, then you've got the 120 to ground. You could have three separate branch circuits sharing a neutral, right? And you have to be very careful there, all right? Because I'm sizing that neutral depending on what the loads are or what type of system it is. But again, you have the ability to do certain things. You just have to be careful. It might affect the neutral sizing, okay? But anyway, and again, there's a note that reminds us of that type of thing. Let's look here. Let's see, right here it says, a three-phase four-wire Y system used to supply power to nonlinear loads might necessitate that the power system design allow for the possibility of higher harmonic currents on the neutral conductor. So it may require that neutral be sized larger. So be careful depending on what type of system you're dealing with, okay? And of course, we have some additional continuity in 300.13b. We'll look at that in a second. That's more commercial driven, but we'll look at that in a second. So that's our general rule, okay? So a 14-3, 14, 12-3, red and black, most certainly multi-wire branch circuits can be utilized as such. It's permitted to do so, not required, because you can have, the general rule is we're going to have a separate neutral for every branch circuit, but multi-wire branch circuits are permitted. Now, there are some people that say, I'm not going to do that. Now, at Encore Wire, by the way, we make MC cable, since the conductor's already in there, we make products that are called, and we're not the only ones, other manufacturers do as well. It's called multi-neutral or multi-circuit. What's the difference? Okay, well, multi-circuit means you have multiple circuits sharing the neutral. So you might have a cable that has a black, red, blue, and it might only have one white in there. Or it might have black, red, blue, and a white, and it might have a black, red, blue, and it may have another white in there with a colored stripe on it. Okay, so it's multiple circuits sharing a neutral. Okay, so that's multi-circuit. Now, what is multi-neutral? A multi-neutral cable means that you have a separate neutral, multiple neutrals for every circuit. So you might have a black, red, blue in the cable, and you might have 3 whites. There's a white for each one, but each one of those whites may have a tracer on it. So you have white with a blue stripe, that's for the blue wire. That's the neutral for the blue. You have a white with a black stripe on it, that's for the black. And then you have a neutral white with a red stripe on it, and that would be for the red. So you have 3 separate circuits. But don't lose the sight of the fact that we have multi-wire branch circuit. Even if it shares the neutral, if you do it properly, you still have 3 separate circuits. You get what I'm saying? So again, there's some applications where multi-wire is very convenient to be utilized. Where would be a good example of where this may be utilized? Well, it's probably not that big of a deal, but you know that when we have over 3 current carrying conductors, that we have to apply some type of an adjustment to that, right? When you're, 310.15C1, right? Well, if I have a black, red, blue, and then I have 3 separate whites with corresponding tracers, then now I have 6 current carrying conductors, because we know that a neutral is current carrying. Obviously, power going out, power got to come back. So the neutral is going to be carrying the same amount as the hot. So let's dispel that question that people have right now. Is the neutral considered a current carrying conductor? In a standard circuit with just like a black or white, blue and white, red and white, yes, the neutral is a current carrying conductor, and you count it as such. Now, in a multi-wire branch circuit where the neutral is only carrying the imbalance, it is not considered a current carrying conductor unless you're dealing with a 3-phase, 4-wire Y system where you have harmonics and things like that. Then it does become a current carrying conductor. And of course, we talked about that in other episodes when we're talking about neutrals and what qualifies as a neutral. But my point is, in a normal multi-wire branch circuit where I'm just going to run a black, red, blue, and 1 white, and it's going to be 3 separate circuits, but it share the neutral, and you put it on a 3-pole tie properly, if you do everything properly, right, then what you're going to have is the neutral is going to carry the imbalance. So you have 3 separate circuits. Now, residentially, you're always, anytime you have a multi-wire branch circuit residentially in a single-phase setup, that neutral is not going to be counted as a current carrying conductor because it is only carrying the imbalance. That's it. Okay. If they're totally balanced, then it carries nothing. That type of scenario. Okay. But in a normal branch circuit where I'm going to run a black and a white, like just like 14-2, whatever, then that neutral is also the grounded conductor. Now, technically, it's not necessarily a neutral, right? Although, because again, the neutral, okay, is carrying the imbalance and it's carrying the full amount, but it is most certainly a grounded conductor. So even with that, synonymously, just in a conversation, we call it a neutral, the black and a white. That's the hot and neutral. It's just synonymously well, but it is definitely a grounded conductor. Okay, so you won't get lost in the semantics of it. Some people just lose their shit when you start talking that. They go, you got to call it proper terms. You got to call it. Okay, well, it's definitely a grounded conductor. We know that. But it is considered a current carrying conductor. Now, so the benefit is you have 6 current carrying conductors if you have a black, red, and a blue, and you have a corresponding white conductor for each one of those, then you have 6 current carrying conductors. Whereas in a multi-wire branch circuit, you may not. right? You could have, for example, a black, red, blue, and I don't know, I'm purple, whatever. And then you have a separate neutral for the black and the red, and a separate neutral for the blue and the purple, whatever. And then neutral. So in that, you only have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You have 4 current carrying conductors because the neutral is carrying the imbalance. They are not considered current carrying conductors. So thinking of your design in single phase, it's very hard in a multi-wire branch circuit. You're not going to have to worry about that the neutral conductor, which is carrying the imbalance, truly carrying the imbalance, to be counted as a current carrying conductor. Okay. So again, you're not going to be, now you're going to have 5, but it's not the same, or you have 4, so you still have an adjustment, but it's not going to be the same. It's still the same 80%, but again, you have a lot of room in there depending on how you want to lay your circuits out. And that's why we make an MC cable that gives you a variety of those type of things. It's already pre-made, but you could do that all in a raceway if you wanted. Nothing says you can't. The one also, I just mentioned this because people ask me that. I don't know where this comes up out of the blue. Can you re-identify a white conductor as a hot? You can in a cable assembly. You cannot in a raceway. People say, well, why? Because that's what the code says. Okay. I mean, the other reason is that in a cable assembly, since the conductors are all already in there, the probability of removing things and things like that, once it's identified, it's done. It's not coming out of the cable. The problem with a raceway is that typically you could pull additional circuits in there, and you could cause something to get crossed up in identification improperly and cause a problem. So you're not allowed to do it in raceways, but you can do it in a cable assembly. Okay. All right, and we can go look at that. If anybody wants me to go look at that, that's in 200. Okay, you have 200.6 and you have 200.7, which talks about the rules for re-identifying a neutral as a hot conductor, and then when you can use the neutral or those type of things, or when you can use a color conductor as a neutral, or when you can use a neutral as a hot conductor. We have some rules in 200.6 and 200.7 for those type of identifications. Okay, all right, let me get back to where I was. All right, so that's the general. What about the disconnecting means? Okay, so disconnecting means for these multi-wire branch circuits. So this is going to get into what we were talking about here. It says each multi-wire branch circuit shall be, okay, so if you go, remember it's a choice, you're permitted to do it here, okay, to use a multi-wire. This one's different. This says, okay, well, if you're using a multi-wire, then it shall be, so this is mandatory language, folks, it's not shall be permitted, this is shall be, provided with the means that will simultaneously disconnect. Now, this is important. We are not talking about necessarily the simultaneous trip at this point. We're just talking about the ability to disconnect it and kill power from both legs. That's all we're talking about, right? So if I have 2 separate circuit breakers, right, and they're stacked on top of each other with an identified handle tie, okay, they're not common trip, okay, because they're different breakers, right? But they have an identified handle tie, so they will be simultaneously disconnected, okay? So that's a difference in those scenarios, whereas you have a common trip or you have something that's a simultaneous disconnect. We're talking about in this one here, the ability to be able to shut it off. What you don't want to do is have 2 single poles side by side, and the code permits this to have 2 single poles, as we talked about. But what you don't want is somebody to accidentally cut off the top one and leave the bottom one. And then you think that it's dead. There's no power to it. And then what happens? Your butt goes out there, or somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. You're the electrician that put it in and you didn't follow the code. And now Harry homeowner, and you know how that works, Harry homeowner wants to go in and mess in their panel or do something because they think that we're overpriced. Speaking of which, I thought my person that fixed my boat, I thought their prices were overpriced, but I did not argue with them. Why? Because I'm not a boat guy. I don't know boats. And I don't know what their rates is. So who am I to argue and tell them that they're charging too much? Unless I did my due diligence and called around. And I did not. I went straight to them because it was convenient. So you have to suck it up and you have to pay it. My wife was like, that seems outrageous. I'm like, what does BOAT mean? Break off another 1,000. That's what the acronym for BOAT, right? So, I'm just saying, when it comes to electrical charge fees, you can't complain about the price that the electrician charges if you didn't do your due diligence to price around. You know what I'm saying? If that's what he charges and you went with him, you should have asked what their hourly rate was up front, and those type of things. So again, that's just a consumer aware type of thing. What's up, Edgar? Glad to have you here. Trenton, thank you. Thanks for emailing that. We'll get that coin out to you. All right, so let's get back to the code real quick. Actually, you know what? Let's go here so we can see if you have any questions. If you got any questions, folks, feel free to chime away. I'll answer anything I can. So this is your disconnect. So it says that each multi-wire branch circuit shall be provided with a means that will simultaneously disconnect all ungrounded conductors at the point where the branch circuit originates. So that's in your panel, okay? It also has an informational note. This is why I love informational notes. It's not that the code is trying to be an instruction manual. It's not that the code is trying to tell you to do something like it's instructions or something like that. It's just reminding you, and that's what I like about information notes is, hey, by the way, you might want to go look at 240.15b for the information on the use of single pole circuit breakers as a disconnecting means. That's great because people might forget that. And it reminds me to go, oh, wait a minute, I can use a 2-pole breaker. Obviously they're going to simultaneous disconnect in a 2-pole breaker. But also, I know that I can use single poles and I have to do something extra, okay? Now, by the way, I'm in the 2023, as you can see up at the top, and this is Link. And Link has good stuff in here. I am a big fan of Link. Whether me and NFPA get along all the time, I still think it's an amazing organization. They do a great job, that type of thing. But so anyway, right here, here's 2 single pole breakers with an identified handle tie. Right? And we haven't gone to look at 240.15b, but this is permitted right here. Now look how this is laying out. Maybe I'll show this to you. Oops. All right, so I'm trying to get it better in the picture. Okay, so here he is. Here's a multi-wire branch circuit. Okay, see these tabs are removed, but not the neutral tab. That's not removed because it's sharing the neutral, right? Right. So here you go. You've got this one, and this looks like the top of this one here, and this one is the one circuit, and this one here, and this one here is the other circuit. And this is essentially what I did in those apartments. Those I shouldn't say apartments. What are they? Well, they were apartments, but they're like for a college, and it was University of Virginia, and it wasn't a dormitory setup. It was separate apartments in like, I can't explain it, but they were apartments, that type of thing. What's up, Tony? Glad to have you here. All right, so that was that one. And so this was 2 single poles with an identified handle tie. It might be a clip that goes between them. It might be a clip that clips over top of them that make them act as one, but these could be 2 single pole breakers, perfectly fine. Or down here, you see a 2-pole breaker, which does the same thing, and it is designed to be simultaneous disconnect on its own. Same setup, same circuit, okay? Different receptacles, okay? And actually 2 separate circuits on each one of these receptacles, okay? Very convenient, okay? All right. So that is kind of the neat thing about Link. If you don't have Link, it's not expensive. It's about $125 a year, but it gives you access to so many codes. The 2023, 2020, 2017. Again, if you're somebody that works in multiple jurisdictions and codes are all over the place, this is great for you. All right, now, what about line to neutral loads? It says multi-wire branch circuits shall supply only line to neutral loads, okay? Well, I don't have, so this is an example right here. This is line to neutral loads. This is line 1 to this neutral. It's one circuit. Line 2, the red, to the neutral is the second circuit, okay? These are line to neutral loads, right? And so that's what a multi-wire branch circuit's allowed to supply. those type of things, okay? Now here, let's go down. So this is, again, what we just saw. It's just, this is 2 single poles with identified handle tie. So we go down here to this one. Check this out. So this is a 2-pole breaker, and this is a multi-wire branch circuit, okay? So this goes. All right, now look at this one. It says a single phase 12240 multi-wire branch circuit is also permitted to supply a device with a 250 volt rated receptacle line to line and a 125 volt rated receptacle line to neutral, as shown in the illustration below, provided the branch circuit overcurrent device simultaneously opens both ungrounded conductors of the multi-wire branch circuit. So look at here. Here's a multi-wire branch circuit, right? So here, notice what it's doing, and I can't see what's going here. Yeah, there we go. So see, this is 2 different type of face plates designed from this single receptacle right here. So we're getting a 120, 240, and you'll notice right here, look at this setup right here. On this side, because these are both here and here. And I don't know if you can see this or not. You really can't see it. I don't know if I can zoom in on it. But if I zoom in, let's see if I can zoom in on it. Right here. You see down, oops, see right here? There's clearly no tab down here. Right? Okay. So it allows you to be able to do some kind of configuration like this as well. Let me get this down. Hold on, guys. Let me get it down to where you can see the screen a little better. All right. Let's see here. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, so that's what we've got there. So line to neutral lows. Okay. Here's your exceptions. Right? Here's your exceptions. And I don't know if I can zoom in on these. Okay. Yeah, a little bit better. Okay. Exception number 1, because this is a rule saying it can only supply line to neutral loads. And exception says a multi-wire circuit that supplies only one utilization equipment shall be permitted to supply line to line loads. Okay. One piece. So you can run a multi-wire branch circuit out to a piece of equipment. You can do line to line. Again, only if it goes to one utilization of a piece of equipment. And number 2 says a multi-wire branch shall be permitted to supply line to line if all ungrounded conductors of a multi-wire branch circuit are opened simultaneously by the branch circuit overcurrent device. And that was the example that we saw right here. Okay. This breaker is going, we're allowed to have line to line, okay, on here like this, as long as it is a simultaneous disconnect. Okay. So you get the flexibility. I just don't know, a lot of people are just scared because they don't understand multi-wire branch circuits. What is that? What is that? David says most electricians try to use copper wire to tie them together. I am not sure what you mean, David. Can you elaborate a little more? When you say copper wire, I'm assuming the branch circuit's going to be copper. So help me out. Help me out with what you mean. Okay, now next is the grouping. We saw this. I explained it a minute ago. It says the ungrounded and grounded conductors of each multi-wire branch circuit shall be grouped in accordance with 200.4b. And of course, that's this rule right here. And that's where we saw the handle ties. So if I have multi-wire branch circuit coming in, I have to show, oh, you mean between, yeah, oh, yeah, I've seen it done with screws. I've seen it done with wire. And what Dave is talking about is that people try to take single pole breakers and they don't use identified handle tie. They'll stick a wire between them. I've seen them with tie wraps between them. I've seen them with a 632 down through the holes with a nut on it. That is not an identified handle tie. And people say, well, it may work. Yeah, it may work. But if it's a screw and that breaker puts off heat, if that screw pulls, if there's a lot of loads, for example, right? And that screw holds the heat because it's steel, then it could expand and cause the handle to break. I don't know. I'm just saying, you really have to. And also, when it's 2 single poles are together like that, and you work one, it puts a lot of undue stress on the other one. So it could cause the handle to break. All I know is the code says it has to be an identified handle tie and a 632 with a screw through it, a piece of wire, a tie wrap, a nail. All those things are not identified as a handle tie. So the answer is no bueno on that type of thing. Marlon says, is that illustration saying we could share one of the phases on the 240 to supply 120 to another circuit? All right. Yeah, hold on. Let me bring you back to the illustration. And there we go right there. I think what this is saying right here is, you see, this is the application. And if you read the code, it says right here, multi-wire branch circuit applies to only one line to neutral load. It's load. Okay, we just happen to be showing on a receptacle. It says the multi-wire branch circuit supplies only one utilization equipment on one piece of equipment. So not to branch off and be able to supply another piece of equipment. One piece of equipment, okay, shall be permitted to supply line-to-line loads, okay, which is one example would be like this right here, okay. This is a line-to-line right here. This is the 120, and this one gives you the 240 between them based on this piece of equipment right here, okay. So most certainly it's going to allow you to do that, okay. And let's see here. Here's some examples. If loads are connected to line, the utilization equipment connected between two or three phases. Okay, don't like how they say that in there. Again, still could be one phase. It says 2-pole or 3-pole circuit breakers are required to disconnect all ungrounded conductors simultaneously. And of course, it reminds you to see these other rules that we're obviously been talking about, that type of thing. So I would say that just because you see a receptacle here doesn't mean this is only applies to a receptacle, by the way. Let's see here. But you have the exceptions for that. Okay. And if your exceptions apply, David, then most certainly utilize that. But it does not mean that I'm going to one piece of utilization equipment and then be able to branch off and supply other pieces of utilization equipment. No, that's this exception. This one, okay, just allows me to have line-to-line loads on a multi-wire branch circuit. What that means is I might be running a multi-wire branch circuit, black or red with a shared neutral, and I get there, and at that location, at that load, if I want to have a line-to-line, even though I ran the multi-wire branch circuit out there in order to be able to get two circuits with a shared neutral, this is going to allow me, under this exception, to be able to supply a 240-volt line-to-line load as well as the multi-wire branch circuit, okay? It's permitting me to do that, okay? Now, at the end of the day, you still got to be careful. Why? Because you got to 210.19, and we have to know the loads. So we can't just start willy-nilly adding crap and we not know what the load. So I intended to run a multi-wire branch circuit out there because I'm going to have two circuits, right? The red and the black, and then turn around and be able to also have a 240-volt load and not take into consideration the load calculation for the branch circuit. So 210.19, we have to make sure that we know how to do a load calculation, because you can't just get infinite crap out of something, right? So we're going to be dependent on the load, dependent on the circuits. This just gives you the ability under the exception to do that. But the general rule is only line to neutral loads for multi-wire branch circuits. That's a general, unless any of the exceptions. If none of the exception apply to your install, then you can only use a multi-wire branch circuit for line to neutral loads. Make sense? Okay. That identification rule that I was talking about, the grouping. So again, that is if I have, and let me explain this one, because again, I get a lot of people that don't do this. And one of the things I find a lot when people use multi-wire branch circuit in a commercial environment, they have a raceway and they have multiple phase and they're sharing neutrals, because they can. Okay, there are some rules we have to follow. Again, we're going to follow in 300, and we'll go look at that in a minute. But you may have multiple phases in a three-phase system running inside of a raceway, and you're sharing neutrals. Or you may have a single phase, and you have multiple circuits running in there, and you're sharing a neutral. The neutral has to be grouped with the actual ungrounded conductors, unless it's obvious. What does obvious mean? Well, If I have only a raceway that has a red and a black and one white, then it's obvious that that white goes with this black and that red. Okay. Now, the moment somebody may pull in additional circuits, you have to remember that when you're getting that part inspected for your work, that you're going to have to now identify yours so that it's obvious with what you run, that type of thing. So this is an ongoing thing. Also, if it's a cable assembly coming in, like a 14.3 or 12.3, not required to do any grouping because it's obvious. You see it coming in the cable assembly, they're all together. Now, granted, the panel may get really full, but as far as the code's concerned, if it's obvious that neutral goes with those circuit conductors, then there's no need for a grouping. You don't have to put a tie wrap on it or some label on it or some wrap, that type of thing. Okay, you make sense? But that is that requirement. Now, with that said, one of the areas that people really flip out about is we're going to go to, let me see if it looks like my internet is, my thing has gone bad here. So let me go to 240 real quick. And let's go down and look at 240.15 because we're kind of covering all these things with the multi-wire branch circuits, right? So let's go look at it. Hopefully that answered. Marlon, let me know if it doesn't answer it. Anybody, if anything I say doesn't answer it, it may not be that I don't know what I'm saying. It's just the way I'm conveying it. If I'm confusing anybody, please, by all means, that's what we're here for. I never touted myself as the, this is the problem with some of those Facebook groups. They say, Paul thinks he knows everything. He's the guru. Paul is trying to explain it, having coffee in the morning with you, and I'm trying to do the best I can. And maybe I'm not the best educator in the world. Ryan Jackson, Mike Holt, those are probably much better than I am. It's just that one of the differences is I do this stuff live. I don't do pre-recorded where you're going to get everything 100% crystal because you can go over it and edit it. I don't do that stuff. I'm just talking to you real, out here in the real world, trying to explain things to you. All right, so I don't know why I'm getting an error. But anyway, it looks like it's sharing anyway. I got an error at the bottom, like error loading something. So anyway, as long as it's showing here. Okay, so here we are at the circuit breakers as overcurrent devices. Now, multi-wire branch circuits. So where we're at is 240.15. So this is another code reference that you have to be aware of. Not just 210.4 for the branch circuit and how you deal with. What's up, Samantha? Glad to have you here. We're not just talking about the multi-wire branch circuit and how you have to run them and terminate them for the, for the 210.4 requirement. Now we're looking at 240.15. And we're like, okay, so we're looking at the ungrounded conductors. And what about circuit breaker as overcurrent device? Multi-wire branch circuits, B1. What do we have to be aware of? All right, well, individual single pole circuit breakers with identified handle ties. Okay, so again, I think it was brought out, David, whoever it was brought it out earlier. David says sometimes a copper wire is better than an identified handle tie. Yeah, but still not acceptable. So remember, as an AHJ, the moment that we accept something that deviates from the code, then guess what? We become liable at some point. You have no immunity as an AHJ because we have what's called We have misfeasance, malfeasance, and nonfeasance. So I used to teach my inspectors, just follow the code. Do not give your opinion. Do not say, I'm okay with this. If it's something that needs to be interpreted, I always ask them to come to me so that I could weigh that burden on my shoulders. Now, they make decisions in the field because they have to make split-second decisions. But I used to, as the AHJ or the deputy of the AHJ or of the electrical division, I like to carry the burden on my shoulders. I wanted the responsibility that if something went wrong, the buck stopped with me because I did not want any of my inspectors to be subject to anything, no stresses. I just wanted them to be free to do their job. So that's why I made myself available on either walkie-talkie. We had walkie-talkies as well as our cell phones. I was always available because I did not want them to feel the pressure that they had to do something. Now, a lot of them had to make decisions. I wasn't working all the time. But at the end of the day, certain things are easy. That's an easy one. Identified handle tie is easy. A piece of wire, a screw, a nail, that's the no-brainer. It's not identified. even though you're right. Some things may work better. A 632 with a nut on each end, tight it down, or 632 with a nut, probably, or even an 832 probably works better than all of them. But it's not an identified for it, so we can't accept it. And I don't want any of the liability involved in it, especially if that causes any damage. You get what I'm saying? But I get it. Let's see here. All right. So that's the identified handle tie. The manufacturers will give you an identified handle tie. You can buy one for it. Easy thing is use a 2-pole breaker, 3-pole breaker. You don't have to worry about it. But if you're going to use single poles, again, make sure they're stacked on top of each other. Hey, Ron Bo, I didn't see you in there. I appreciate you. I'm not the best, but I try my best. Okay. And Adam says, F the haters. Well, you're most welcome, sir. I'm glad I can give you something. All right, let's see here. Hopefully when you get your boat ready, hopefully you and your wife can catch some big ones. Absolutely. We are planning it. We know there's some big ones out there in Lake Anna. That's where we go fishing at. Lake Anna. Anybody know where that is? It's a power plant lake here in Virginia, and we love going there. All right. That's where we used to go before we went to Texas. All right, so identified handle ties shall be permitted as the protection for each ungrounded conductor of a multi-wire branch circuit that serve only single-phase line to neutral loads. Okay, so I can use a single pole circuit breakers with identified handle ties, right? As long as, and this is little nuances you have to see because you saw our other rules, right? That says, oh, we'll let you do some line to line. But you can only do single pole circuit breakers with identified handle ties as an option that can only be used for single phase line to neutral loads. Cannot be used for line to line. So while the code permitted us to do that in 210.4, when it comes to the circuit breaker application in a multi-wire branch circuit, it's saying, look, I'll let you use two single poles with an identified handle tie, but that can only be used for line to neutral loads. Makes sense, right? Okay. Let's see here. Go down. All right. And so grounded single phase alternating current circuits. Okay. So in a grounded system, and most of what we're going to do with in what we deal with in residential, for example, and most commercial applications, we're dealing with grounded systems. And in a single phase, it says, well, in grounded system, it says individual single phase circuit breakers rated 120 240 volt. Okay. So individual single pole circuit breakers rated 120 240 volt AC with identified handle ties shall be permitted to protect as the protection for each ungrounded conductor for a line-to-line connected load on single-phase circuits. So what's the difference? All right, two single-pole standards, they can be just 120 volts, not 240 volts. They could just be 120, then they're going to be, what? Line-to-neutral loads only for those single poles. Now, if I find single poles that are 120, 240 volt single poles that are designed to go together with an identified handle tie, that means together they can utilize 240, then I'm able to use that, okay, for what? Line-to-line connected loads. Okay, so this is just allowing me, this isn't really having to do with multi-wire branch circuit, but this is where I can have two single poles. As long as the two single poles are rated 120, 240 volt individually, then they can go together with an identified handle tie, and I could do line-to-line loads, okay, on single phase, okay? And then this one down here is your 3-phase and 2-phase systems, okay? So in these scenarios, and oh, by the way, most of the time in a single phase application where we have multi-wire branch circuits, it's typically just going to be the fact that you're trying to get two 120 volt circuits at a location. Okay. It's typically, to be able to do that. Okay. And so you're not doing that to get 240 volts. And that breaker, if it's a standard breaker, it's not rated for 240, then you can't put the two single poles together to be able to use as a 240 volts. It says that right there. You're going to go with a 2-pole breaker to do that. Or you're going to find some single poles that are rated 120/240, which means they're designed to work together with another breaker with an identified handle tie to be able to do a line-to-line load. So all that makes sense? I think in the real world, when we're doing multi-wire branch circuits, we're going to use a 2-pole breaker anyway, or we're going to use two single poles with identified handle tie. And it really doesn't matter because when you're dealing with line to neutral loads, any single pole breaker is okay to use with another single pole breaker with an identified handle tie. It's a no-brainer, okay? Now, three-phase. What does it say? For line-to-line loads in a 4-wire three-phase system or 5-wire two-phase system, I don't see these, to be honest with you. Have not seen one in decades, by the way, a two-phase system. It says individual single pole breakers rated 120, 240 volts. Okay, remember, it's the single pole breaker that's rated 120, 240 with an identified handle tie shall be permitted as the protection for each ungrounded conductor if the systems have a grounded neutral point and the voltage to ground does not exceed 120. Okay, so this would be typical for like a system where you've got the Y connector system where any of the phases to ground is only going to be 120. So you use circuit breakers that are rated 120. Okay, all right, that type of thing. So, and I don't know that I don't know that it shows a illustration here that are worth looking at. Anyway, here's a single phase 240 volt breaker. That don't really. Yeah, I guess there gives some different examples of it. None that we'll go into. Here's an example right here of a 3-pole breaker, 3-phase 4-wire right here. Any of these phases are 120 to ground. Any of these, right? Any of these are 120. Okay, so you've got this breaker right here. You have single pole breakers with identified handle tie, or you have a 3-pole breaker. Whatever you want to do these type of loads. Okay. And that is because the line to neutral load on any of those phases is 120. Okay, that type of thing. Anyway, that's just some extra job. That is the beautiful thing about Link, though, by the way, guys. If any of that ever confuses you, they do give some pretty decent illustrations. They are pretty much one-liney, but there are some decent explanations in here. And we're over an hour, so I won't get into any of those, but we'll talk about that, show you that. All right, the last one that we want to talk about is when you're doing commercial wiring and you're doing a multi-wire branch circuit, there are some things that you need to be aware of as well. So what we're going to go look at now is, bear with me while I get there, just for all you commercial dudes. Okay, bear with me, and we'll get there. Hold on here. Oops. Let me make sure I've covered everything first, though, real quick. Before we go there, let me make sure I've covered everything I wanted to talk about. Let me do a summary real quick. Then we'll go look at the 300 one. But let me do a summary real quick for you folks. Let's see here. Let me just see if I can do a summary. So we know what a multi-wire branch circuit, right? It's a branch circuit that consists of 2 or more ungrounded conductors that have a voltage between them and a neutral conductor that has equal voltage between it and each ungrounded conductor. So line 1, line 2, the neutral. From here to here, 120. From here to here, 120. Between them, 240. Okay, that type of thing, all right? But it's 2 or more, all right? We got that. 210.14, okay? They're permitted to be, a multi-wire branch circuit is permitted to be multiple circuits. Okay, we already know that. Let's see here. One of the things that we have to be aware, and we'll go look at this one in a minute, is 300, that type of thing, but bear with me. Disconnecting means simultaneous disconnect. We covered that and what it means to use single pole breakers. If they're not rated, if they're just 120, then you're only going to use them to neutral to hot to neutral loads. That's it. Line to line, they have to be single poles. They have to be rated 120, 240, even the single poles. So if you stack them, use identified handle tie. That's okay to do that as long as they're rated 120, 240 on those. If you only have line to neutral loads and single poles that are just rated 120 are perfectly fine as long as identified handle tie. That's not a problem as long as they use line to neutral loads. Let's see here. Grouping of the conductors. You saw that if they come in a raceway and you've got multiple circuit conductors and multiple shared neutrals, you need to identify out and put a tie wrap or some type of identification. Some people just use white tape or whatever to segregate them out so that we know exactly which neutral goes with those hot conductors that are used with that shared neutral. The exception to that, if it's a cable, then it's obvious. Then there's no need to do that because obviously I can look at a cable and see that that white goes with those black and reds or whatnot. So that's not a problem. Let's see. What about... we looked at all those here. Let's see what else do we want to look at. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let me go to... let's see. Okay, let me go here. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see if I can... trying to see if there's anything extra I want to add to this scenario. Bear with me as I look down and see if there's any additional something I want to add. While I'm looking, folks, to see if there's anything else I want to add because we're at the end of the show, let me know in your comments. Anything else did you want me to possibly add while I look real quick to see if there's anything else that I want to add in here. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find... I'm trying to see if there is anything else that I want to add. What's up, Miles? Glad to have you here. Let's see if there's anything else I want to add. Well, it's under, let's look under here real quick. Just trying to see if there's anything else I want to add that we haven't already covered. Well, let's look at let's go real quick. Let's look at 300.3b real quick. All right, let me see if I can share this real quick. It might work right here. Okay, so only thing else I want to talk about is 300.3 conductors. And again, we're talking multi-wire branch circuits. So here it says conductors of the same circuit. Okay, so it says all conductors of the same circuit and where used, the grounding conductor and all equipment grounding conductors and bonding conductors shall be contained in the same raceway, conduit body, auxiliary gutter, cable tray, cable bus, trench, cable, or cord, unless otherwise permitted in accordance with 300.3b1 through b4. No pull down here, but I just remind you that all of the multi-wire branch circuit conductors, okay, hots and the shared neutrals, have to be routed together. That's why they're put in the same cable assembly. That's why they're routed in the same raceway, not split up. I can't have this run. I see people do this, and a lot of times what'll happen is that they'll put some of the conductors in one raceway, and then they'll put the third conductor in another raceway with the neutral of a multi-wire, and they're not all run together. Well, that can cause a heating issue in steel conduits, right? Okay, where it's a ferrous raceway. It can also produce EMF and those type of things, and all those conductors have to be run together. So again, splitting up a multi-wire branch circuit like that in multiple raceways is a no bueno. We don't do that. Okay, not going to. Let's see here. Hold on here. Let's see here. I'm seeing if I'm looking to search for some graphics. See if I can find any additional graphics that might be beneficial for me to show you anything. Let's see here. I'm looking through my course stuff to see if there's any other illustrations that I might want to show. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, I don't see any other of that. Let's go. Let's look at some neutral stuff real quick. Let's go to 200. All right. And we'll look at this. Let's see here. Let's see here. Trying to see if there's any additional stuff that I want to give. Guys, if y'all know anything additional that I want to give. No, sorry, I don't connect with anybody. Please. Oh, we're on TikTok. I'm trying to see if there's anything additional that I want to talk about. Y'all know of anything additional y'all want me to talk about? I'm more than happy to talk about, but I'm just kind of looking and see if there's anything additional that I want to share. I don't see anything additionally I want to share. The only thing I guess the only other thing that I can think about that I can share would be one of the things that you don't want to do in commercial application is if you're using a shared neutral, you do not want the device to be the main component. In other words, we don't want you to bring shared neutrals to a device so that if you have multi-wire branch circuits and you bring it to a device and you use the device as the splicing component, then what happens is if you have two 120 volt circuits running and you remove that device and it breaks the neutral, then you take two separate 120 volts that are sharing a neutral and you create a 240 volt circuit and it can blow things up, burn things up on it. So when we're talking about the consistency of, for example, if you're dealing with a multi-wire branch circuit in a commercial application, you want to make sure that you splice all of your neutrals together and then take a PIC jumper over to the device so that removing the device does not turn the potential for two multi-wire branch circuits into one line-to-line circuit or 240 volt circuit, and now you're going to burn things up. So this is in commercial typically why we would run do a pigtail, for example, for the neutral conductors over to the device so that we're not dependent on the device, that type of scenario, okay? So that is one of those scenarios where you would do that. Let's see here. Yeah, let's see. I think I have an image for that. Let's see. I don't know that I have. Let's see here. I'm trying to see if I have an illustration. Maybe a nice illustration to show that. Maybe I don't. I'm trying to see. Well, we could go to the code. Let's just go to the code, and I'll just show you where that is in the code so that people say, where does it say that in the code? Let's just go on. Let me go on and go to the code real quick. Let me go down. It's 300. And let's go here, and let's go right here. Close that up right here. Okay. All right, so right here, for those that aren't aware, it may have an illustration here. So this is mechanical and continuity of conductors 300.13. This is another one to be aware of. Device removal. That's what we're talking about, okay? It says in a multi-wire branch circuit, which is what we've been talking about today, and this not just commercial, by the way. This could be applied anywhere, but it's mostly seen in commercial applications where they're utilizing a lot of multi-wire branch circuit applications, and they come to devices. It says in a multi-wire branch circuit, it says the continuity of the grounded conductor shall not depend on the device connections, such as lamp holders, receptacles, and so forth, where the removal of such device would interrupt the continuity. So if you have a neutral that's going through a system and you're sharing the neutral, right? I mean, you're using a shared neutral and you have multiple circuits, so a black and a red, and it's being run through this setup. And if you happen to use the neutral and go into the device and then come out of the device and loop through, and so that neutral's integrity is going to be compromised if you remove the device. And that means you take two separate 120 volt circuits, and now since they're sharing the neutral, if you remove the neutral, then now they're going to be a 240 volt circuit, and you're going to start burning things up. So in order to stop that, the code is very clear. It says, look, don't let the receptacle, don't let the lamp holder, don't let the luminaire, don't let that be the actual splice, if you will, that maintains the integrity of that grounded conductor in a multi-wire branch circuit. Don't let that be the linchpin for the continuity of your grounded. That's why we typically will splice it on a multi-wire branch circuit and take a jumper over to the actual device. Okay, now this doesn't really give an illustration, sadly, but it does give some language. So let's see here. It says the grounded conductor neutral of a multi-wire branch circuit supplying receptacles, lamp holders, and other devices are not permitted to depend on terminal connections for continuity between devices. For multi-wire installations, a splice can be made with a jumper connection to the terminal, or the neutral can be looped. Okay, it means that basically you're looping it through the device and continuing it on and splicing it to the neutral that's going on, so that you've got enough to be able to pull it out the box, but you're not cutting that neutral. You're not stopping it and dead ending it on the device. So you're not backstabbing and then coming out the other side, or looping it on one terminal and then coming out the other, so that when somebody removes that device, now you've got potential problems downstream on that multi-wire branch circuit. Why? Because it says right here, opening the neutral could cause unbalanced voltages, and a considerably higher voltage would be impressed on one part of the multi-wire branch circuit, especially if the downstream line to neutral loads were I guess that's appreciably unbalanced, right? So I'm sure you've probably all seen the illustration where you may have a hairdryer and a toaster. Again, just an analogy. Depending on the wattage, in many cases, the one with the higher wattage is not the one that's going to be the hazard. It's going to be the one with the lower wattage. So again, it again depends on what's being drawn on that circuit, can have an effect. And also, by the way, if you lose that neutral, now you've got these devices that were never tested to be used as a 240, or could have higher voltages on it that they weren't tested for. And then what happens? It ends up burning it up. And what could it do? It could cause a fire, right? What is the voltage imbalance? Can be a serious issue on a lot of appliances. So it's best to just splice the neutrals and pigtail it. If you're running a multi-wire branch circuit, stay consistent, whether it's commercial, residential, whatnot. If I'm running a multi-wire branch circuit out, a good example is those ones that we ran it to the kitchen, right? And where we ran the 12-3, right? So I'm going to come out there. I'm not going to take that neutral and go to a device that has the one circuit. Let's say it's two separate receptacles in there. And the red goes to one, the black goes to the other. I'm not going to bring that white in and go to that receptacle, right? And then loop out of that receptacle on the other terminal and jump over to the other device. I'm not going to do that, because the removal of the device would lose me the neutral to the other circuit, okay? So I'm not going to do that. So I want to maintain the integrity. So I guess it's not necessarily just for commercial. That's a great example of where I would instead make a splice and run a separate neutral to each device. Makes sense, right? Maintain the integrity of the grounded conductor, the neutral in this case, because it's a multi-wire branch circuit. Maintain the integrity even if the device is removed. That type of scenario. Okay. All right. That is it for that. I went a little over today. Hopefully you got something out of this. Again, yes, hashtag wire waffle. We do have some wire waffles. Also be aware we do have the new slates. There's the new one, Electrician Rules. We appreciate all your patronage. They are on the wheel, so we did add them to the wheel. Here's the one for the master electrician. And by the way, folks, you do not want to treat slate that's used as a coaster, because you want the slate to absorb the moisture. Otherwise, if you were to put some shellac over it or spray it, then the water that runs down will drip off your plate and onto the wood that you're trying to protect. Right? So that's the wire waffle. And we got them in master, and we have them in journeyman. Okay, those are available over on the website, made by yours truly. Okay, they're also on the wheel, by the way. All right, so everybody got their hashtag win in. Let's go spin the wheel. Get a little bit of goodness going on right here. So let's see, we've got it. Hashtag win. Get in or forever hold your peace. And look for the drawing later this, I don't know if it's going to be this week, because again, I'll remind you, I'm not going to be doing a show Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday this week. I'm going to be in McKinney at the corporate office this week, where I've got to do some training out there for some folks. Okay, so let's see. Samantha Isn't that something? You said hashtag wire waffle, and guess what? You just won a wire waffle. So, boy, that's weird. All right, Samantha. So send us your mailing address, and we'll send you a wire waffle. That was weird. You did hashtag wire waffle, and guess what? It must work, folks, because she got a wire waffle. Wow, that was weird. All right, let's do that again. Let's spin. It's your lucky day, Samantha. And I am using a coaster for my coffee, and I'm using the Ohms wheel. And yes, I use V. I don't use E. What the hell? What's going on here with this wire waffle? Keith Wilson. Keith, that looks like a new name. Welcome. So if to get your wire waffle, all you got to do is send us an email at support, SUPPORT, at fasttrackssystem. That's TRAX.com. And give us your name, your username here, as well as your mailing address, and we will send you out a wire waffle. Courtesy of Hunter over at Wire Waffle. All right. All right. So if this happens again, I don't know what the heck's going on. Alberto, I like that. $1 million, dude. If I had $1 million to give you, I'd give it to you. All right. All right. Spinning the wheel. Hashtags. Provident Power. All right. So the wheel isn't messed up. All right, Provident Power, you're in the drawing for an Ohms wheel coin. Neat little coin. It's available in Master, Journeyman, that type of thing. And there's the ones. This is the one that's exclusive for CMECPs. Okay, I know it's going to be blurry because of the way it is. Okay, there you go, over on TikTok. There you go, TikTokers. So this is only like David has these. Only the CMECPs can get this coin, that type of thing. All right. So anyway, but there are other coins available. So congratulations on that. Hopefully you'll win that September 30th. Remember, coasters are on the wheel, but you can get your coasters over on our website. Help support the channel. Okay. Custom made. Brandon is just recently licensed master down in Texas. Congratulations again, Brandon, on that. But you get you're in the drawing for Trade Hog. Trade Hog is again doing wonderful. People love it. We appreciate everybody that's subscribed. We also have new annual subscriptions over there, which are cheaper than it was for the monthly thing. So it's just you got to make an annual commitment to that. So. All right, let's do one more today, and we'll be gone. Let you go. You're in the drawing, Brandon. I should put the hoodies on the wheel. I bet you already have Fast Tracks too. So let's spin again. So David, you're definitely going to get in the drawing for something here. But you already have the tube, so I'm pretty sure you already have the tube. And you probably don't need flashcards, but we'll put you down. 2023 NEC flashcards. And we've got some new ones coming for load calculations and things like that. So again, if you win, you can pick whatever you want. Whatever flashcards you want. We'll have by then we'll probably have a couple different options. So that type of thing. And you can even share them or gift them if you want to gift it to somebody. It's fine. All right, folks, that is it for today. Hopefully you got something out of today's episode. We appreciate having you here. Catch us tomorrow. We will have a show tomorrow. It's just Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week. We will not have a show. I will play a replay, but I am traveling and I'm going to be out in Texas. Okay. So David says, I want the coaster. You got to win the coaster, David. Okay, you spin again. We can spin you again, David. David says he really wants to spin again. So let's see here. We're going to spin again for David. He wants to spin again. All right, David. Spin again for David. He wants me just to give him a coaster. I don't have any CMECP coasters yet. I have no idea, Greg. You'll have to go back and look. All right, you already have that tube, so we're going to spin again for you. Let's see here. Greg, you in the drawing, Greg. You did get in the drawing for the slate coaster. All right. Well, look at here, David. You're in the there you go, David. You're in the drawing for the slate coaster. Okay. All right, so David, there you go. You're in the drawing. You got your wish, David. You're in the drawing for the slate coaster. But Greg, you're also in the drawing for the slate coaster. You got that the other day. Absolutely. So these aren't instant wins. These are the drawings, that type of game. Okay. Code nerd hoodie on the wheel. Dude, y'all can go buy hoodies over on our website. Come on now, spend that money. Let's go. Gotta feed my family. I'm just saying. All right, folks. Again, till next time, stay safe. God bless. Catch you on tomorrow's episode, which will be live. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week, it will be a recording. So sorry about that. I'm on the road. I got to go out for some training. So till next time, folks, take care. God bless. And we'll catch you on an upcoming episode tomorrow of Coffee Hour. Peace.